Alright guys, so I'm going to be doing some Patreon requests, and this first one comes from John McKinney, who asked me to do a pretty interesting video. Like, this is a pretty cool topic. If you guys don't remember, a while back I did like a fun video talking about like, what if raptors were in modern day Africa? Like, that was the idea. So for John's video, John asked me to do his Patreon request is, what if raptors were in modern day India? So, as always, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, where you guys can hit the 3rd tier. That'll allow you access to sending requests for videos, as well as all the other exclusive stuff over on Patreon as well. Anyway, so let's get started. Now, when we use the term raptor, it's a really broad definition, isn't it? It's a very broad, it's a very wide definition for everything. It's something that you really because the problem is like raptors is not just one species. You have to define which raptor. You have Dakota raptor, which may or may not be an actual species now, because we found more evidence that may prove otherwise. You have Deinonychus, you have Dromaeosaurus, you have of course the original Velociraptor, which honestly was no bigger than a rooster, honestly. So for this, we're going to be using one of the biggest of this species, if not the biggest, UtahRaptor. Although our Kilobator is probably the biggest, but UtahRaptor for this specific one, because that's when you think raptor, you think big, heavy, clawed monster. But we're going to be using, instead of Jurassic Park raptors, we're going to be using raptors that are paleo accurate, meaning these are not going to be scaly and super intelligent. These are going to be like the big feathered creatures that we've been seeing in modern day paleontology. So UtahRaptor is probably one of the largest of this species. Let's get that out of the way. Now, if you throw it into modern day India, there's a major difference from that landscape than it is Africa. You see, a lot of people seem to think that raptors were adept to be jungle hunters, right? Like, there was a big thing of like making raptors like a big, large carnivore that would be stalking in the jungles. It actually was more like forested wooden plains areas. Like, it was a big animal, but it was more capable of moving through like open areas. A lot of its landscape was that. Now, not to say it didn't live in like jungled areas or forested areas. It was more like something you would see, like the closest you'd come to that is more of like something along the lines of a kind of like the Alpines in California, like somewhere in the Sierra Nevada area. That's where where you'd see raptors, in a more forested area. So this terrain, first and foremost, if you put a UtahRaptor in this kind of area, this is not gonna, like, this is a totally different landscape for it. Like, this is a landscape that it's a big, you have to understand, UtahRaptors are big carnivores. They're big, like, they're big predators. And we also don't know if they did travel in packs, or if they did this thing called mob mentality, where a bunch of raptors would get together, where a bunch of predators, you see that a lot in Komodo dragons, or crocodiles, where predators of the same species would gang up on one wounded animal. We don't know if that's a thing, or if we don't know if pack mentality was a thing. But yeah, getting back to the point is that, getting back to the major point is that in a territory like this, in a, territory of this nature, it's a harder terrain to move in. You have denser forest, you have muddier ground, you have harder place to stand out because because raptors are covered in feathers that could be very vibrant. So it might be harder to see. And the other thing is, you have, like, raptors are big. Like I said, getting back to the point, is that raptors are big. They're very large, and while they could reach some good speed, it would have to be like a burst. And then what we also have understood is that raptors probably hunted like modern day hawks, where they would jump and pin their prey down. It wouldn't be the claw, because of how the leg worked. It wouldn't be able to kick disembowel its prey. It would have to like jump and hook into its prey and like use its weight to knock it down, then use its talons to hold it down. Now, that's a little hard when you're trying to when you're a over 9-foot predator trying to maneuver in a jungle, especially one like India. The jungles of India are a very fascinating landscape. It's wilds upon wilds, where you have very large animals. You have buffalo. You have large crocodiles. But the big thing, of course, is let's talk about it right now. The rival predators that a raptor would have to contend with in modern-day India. See, in Africa, a raptor would have to, like I talked about, raptors would have to contend for food against lions, jackals, hyenas, leopards, cheetahs. They would have to compete constantly for food. Here is no different. But here it's a little like you have You have jackals in India. You have leopards. You have some cases of lions in some places. But the thing of it is that the biggest contender against a raptor of this size would be a lion. Now, not lion, tiger. Excuse me. I was still on the African track. The tiger is the dominant predator of India. There is no doubt about that. They're solitary and are incredibly powerful. And I'm pretty sure they would have a go at a raptor. I have no doubt in my mind that a tiger may see a raptor as like a rival predator and also something that it could probably hunt. I have no doubt in my mind that if these raptors and tigers were in the same territory, there would be just all out competition for food. Not only that, here's another animal they have to contend with: sloth bears. And you may be thinking, oh, sloth bears aren't that scary. Some of the worst attacks in India's history from animals come from sloth bears. While tigers do take the title, the second place is sloth bears. You see, you have to understand that sloth bears live in a world where tigers and leopards prey on them. Bears in other territories don't have that same problem. Bears are predominantly the apex predator of their environment. Sloth bears don't have that. What sloth bears have is that they share an address with tigers, and you are definitely not going to be an apex predator when there's a tiger involved. So you throw raptors in the mix, sloth bears are just going to be continuously having that killer mentality, and they have been known to kill. Sloth bears have been known to kill or grievously wound tigers. So sloth bears may be giving these raptors some hard press as well. Now, raptor intelligence has been debated a bit, but a new study has shown that raptors were probably on the same level as big cats. So, and you may be thinking, well, that's not smart. Have you seen how a big cat hunts? Especially how they compare it mostly to leopards? That's kind of terrifying. So if the raptor's thrown into a vastly different environment, it's gonna learn. It's gonna learn how to figure out how to adapt fast and become probably a very dangerous predator in its own right. And unlike in Africa, there is territory where these predators would have there's less predators to contend with. Yes, raptors would have to contend with leopards. Even to a sloth bear would be a challenge. The tiger is definitely the biggest problem, but it isn't it wasn't like in the video when I talked about in Africa where raptors would be fighting constantly for their lives. You see, the raptors would have to constantly fight for food every day against other predators in Africa. Here, there are predators in Africa, but a majority of them, give or take a few, are more solitary. So if a event happens where these predators run into each other, it's going to be a violent outclash, but it's not going to be like in Africa where it's you're on alert 24/7. Not to say you wouldn't be in India, but still. And of course, you have to contend. I don't think a raptor, I do think a raptor like UtahRaptor would actually have a go. Like I have this feeling that they would have a run at these elephants. It isn't like with African elephants where they'd be like these big fuck off predators where it'd be like, nah, I'm not dealing. These big fuck off prey animals would be like, nah. Indian elephants are slightly smaller, and tigers have been known to run, to try to make a run at elephants. So I do think, and this is kind of a personal thing, I do think that if given the right circumstances, a Utah raptor would probably try to take down a elephant, definitely an infant, and maybe a wounded one. But I do see, like, if they could try it, they would do it. Like, they would definitely try, especially that pack or mob mentality comes into play against these elephants. So, yeah, again, I'm not talking about the human element. We're just talking about the wildlife. That's it. Like, that's the other thing. But yeah. So you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you think it would be like if raptors were in modern-day India? Just comment below, let me know. Once again, I'd like to thank John McKinney for this Patreon request and continued patronage. Other than that, hope y'all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.